My component of reading is vocabulary. Vocabulary is the knowledge of words and meanings, understanding what the word is and how it's used by using multiple definitions. There are two forms of vocabulary. There's oral, those are the ones that are spoken, and those are the ones that are in print. Those are the ones that you can read and write. Young readers, the vocabulary, the oral vocabulary is larger. Older literate readers, their print vocabulary is larger. The extent of their word knowledge has to do with understanding the vocabulary with one, the reader may not have ever seen it before and has no idea what it means, seen the word but knows what it means, barely knows the meaning. It can figure it out. The student can figure it out with the context words around it. Or the student knows the words well, can explain and use the word proficiently. Research findings shows that children through grade 6 acquire 800 to 1,000 words per year. From grades 2, from age 1 to grade 2, kids gain 160 words per year, or about 2.4 words a day. From grades 3 to 6, about 1,000 root words per year, or only about 2.8 words per day. 2.8 root words per day. The bottom 25% of the students begin with 1,000 fewer words than the average student, and they can only acquire 1.6 words per day. By grade 2, the difference is less than 2,000 words of the average student. Those students are far lower than the average student. This needs to be accelerated by at least 2 words per day. Connecting it with the SVR reading rope, vocabulary falls into the language comprehension strands of the rope. Vocabulary provides the breadth, the precision, and text-critical vocabulary. It links the understanding of vocabulary, where the student can put together the meaning of the text. If not known, can link other words within the text for context. This is to gain an understanding of the word. The precision part is the content vocabulary, the words necessary to understand the central idea of the story. So when they're reading the story, they have an idea of what the words are. Then there's the academic vocabulary. Those are the high types of words used everywhere in reading and writing and everyday use. Sometimes likely unknown to the students with limited vocabulary. Then there's the text-critical vocabulary. These are the words and phrases that are essential to students with an understanding of a particular text. So in other words, they're learning these words through particular text. They may not use it in everyday reading and writing. The types and skills and progressions, types and the progressions across ages or grade levels. Teachers can practice vocabulary daily in week-long lessons. This is an intentional vocabulary teaching where the teachers will teach specific vocabulary words by picking them out beforehand, using age-specific words. And kids can use different learning strategies. The teacher can direct these either through a dictionary, finding the meanings through the dictionary, the morphemic analysis, learning the word parts so you can break down if you know the root words, the contextual analysis, learning from the surrounding words to provide context to understand the word. So when you're looking at the word, you're not quite sure what it is, but you can read around it to make understanding. The teacher can also develop word analysis by developing fun ways and for awareness and interest in the words. Make it fun. Do games and situational things for learning the words. I know myself. I've used. I had kids acting out science vocabulary in one of my practicum lessons, and the kids had a blast doing it. Multiple exposures, seeing words in different places, applying them to different subjects, having the understanding between words that are, you're reading them, but then you're also seeing them in another subject. Currently, in our fourth grade class, we are doing social studies history through reading, within the reading, the literacy, so they're understanding it across different areas. And then the incidental vocabulary, the learning outside the school, challenging kids to go out of their way to read outside the school, talk and use language that they don't normally use, and learning the words. The teacher needs to select the appropriate words. It's not an exact science. It's a trial and error, but you'll have an idea through the readings for the age group. Using age appropriate, using a 3-tiered system. You're going to start with the basic words, the basic word walls. Then you're going to put those together. And then those are in the young grades, from kindergarten to second. There's frequent words that you're going to use, the regular context words of daily life. Those are going to be the grades two and up. And then there's specialized words, the words you're just going to use within that subject. Those are grades 2 and up again. Selecting for English learners, you want to help them by finding words that can be shown or demonstrated. Words that maybe have their language equivalent, almost sounding the same or read the same. You're going to find words, you're going to help them with the depth of the meaning, to understand that words do have more than one meaning. And then give them keys to understanding those words. There are different types of recommendations and practices for word instructions. Starting as early as possible. Preschool or kindergarten. Could even be taught at home to a point with pictures for vocabulary. Teachers need to assess as soon as kindergarten just to provide a baseline, and then practicing early to keep it going. And even needing interventions in kindergarten if they're behind, if they're coming in behind. Typically, lessons will be done as read alouds for K through 2. Not always, but typically, those are probably the best way to do it. Kindergarten, you're going to use 3 or 4 words per book, and about 1 to 2 books per week. When you get into first grade, it might be 4 to 5 words per book, and then still with 1 to 2 books per week. Second grade, you're going to get up to that 5 and 6 words per book, maybe, and then you're still with 1 or 2 books per week. And then when students get to second and third and all the way up to 8th grade, they're going to be able to read independently. And then they're going to be able to use up to 25 words per book and try to read about 1 per week. It may seem like a lot, but kids can handle 25 vocabulary words. Kindergarten to second grade, typically learning whole class. They can do small groups. They can do pairs. Like I said before, with read alouds. You would start with reading the story. Stopping and giving a general explanation of vocabulary words. After the reading, fully introduce the vocabulary words by sharing the context, the words around them, and how give it meaning. Having the kids say the words, and then letting the kids giving the kids student-friendly explanations, and then putting the words in different context. And then doing student engagement activities, making it fun again, trying games with it, seeing if the kids can act out the words, see if they can practice with gestures. And then we're just going to keep saying the word again and again just to get that vocabulary word in there. There's a direct explanation method. It usually takes 4 days. On the first day, the teacher's going to select the vocabulary words. They're going to be teachable and comprehension words. Introduce the words and then read the story. After the reading, you're going to check the comprehension. You're going to review them with the kids. You're going to make sure you introduce the comprehension words, introduce the teaching words, and then you're going to continually review the words as you're reading them and then discussing them. On the second day, you're going to reintroduce the comprehension words. You're going to read aloud. But this time when you read aloud, you're going to stop on the teachable words and give those quick explanations and then the student explanations. After the reading, you're going to check on the comprehension words to see if they understand what they're doing. And then we're going to review all the teachable words again. The next day, we're going to read again. And notice that there's a trend here of reading it and teaching the words, checking the comprehension, reviewing the words. And on the fourth day, you're going to do some more review. You're going to review the vocabulary words, read in context sentences, maybe do some matching to get the general idea. And then when you get to grade 2 and above, there's going to be methods for independently reading, whether or not whole class, small groups, or in pairs. These are generally 3 to 4 days, but about a book a week, like we said before. Before reading, you're going to choose the words, and then you're going to introduce the vocabulary words. You're going to read and pronounce the words. You're going to give student-friendly explanations, and then provide some new context for the kids. We're going to do some word engagements. We're going to ask questions to help the kids understand, and then we're going to have the kids finish the ideas. The teacher's going to give an idea and have the students finish the ideas. And then you're going to allow the students to share their experiences with those words. When you read the text, the kids can do it independently or silently. You can do a read aloud, but when you're doing a read aloud, you might want to stop for some quick explanations on the vocabulary words. After reading, we're going to discuss. We're going to do some examples, some non-examples. We're going to use some juxtaposition, which is similar ideas of the terms. And then we're going to do some challenge exercises of multiple choices, fill in the blanks, true-false questions. And then for fun, you can do some word associations with the kids. And then you're going to challenge them on the last day with some multiple choice quizzes. Have the kids do a quiz of their word knowledge. I found a video of a 2 vocabulary word instruction. This was done with whole class group and pairs. It seemed to be a 5-day instruction using something called a Marzano 6-step process. The teacher describes the 6-step process of 1. The teacher explains the examples of the terms. The students restate, describe, and explain in their own words. So they're going to be doing that linguistic part. And then the students are going to construct their own pictures or pictographs or symbolic representations of the terms. You'll see they're going to do some non-linguistic hand movement. They're purely symbolic hand and arm motions. And the teacher extends and refines the understanding of words with fun games you'll see at the end of the video. And then as they're discussing this, they're always adding these words to their notebooks. They're taking notes, and then they're figuring out ways to use it in a small group. And then the teacher will periodically ask the students to discuss the terms. And then finally, on the last day, you can see where the kids will do some fun games with them to reinforce it. They're going to define them, they're going to give example, and they're going to use that symbolism. So I'd like to show you that video.
For this week that we're going to focus on is formulate. Can you please repeat after me? Formulate.
Formulate.
One more time. Formulate.
Formulate.
what I always try to do is use Marzano's 6 steps. The idea is that we identify the word, we say the word, the students speak about the word, they give examples, they have a picture that associates with the word, they have a game, and then they are periodically challenged to use the word, read about the word, speak and listen to the word, define that word. What I want you to do right now is, whether you know this word or not, I want you to think in your head, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word formulate? Hold on, take a second. So formulate, what's the first thing that comes into mind when you hear the word formulate? Michael, what's the first thing that comes into mind when you think of formulate?
The first thing that comes into my mind when I say the word formulate is to create something.
To create something, very good. I emphasize Tier 2 vocabulary words because these are the words that students are going to come across in their reading, in their writing, within all their different classes. Not just their English language arts classes, their science, their history, their math classes, their elective courses. I always try to teach 1 to 2 words per week, and that's the limit for my Tier 2 vocabulary. The reason why is I really want the students to get deep with that word, to spend some quality time with that word and understanding what that word means.
If a 6th grader student asked me to formulate a plan to be successful in 7th grade, I would say, be yourself and try to study real hard for all the test-driven plans.
How is this formulate? How is this formulate?
He was trying to create a plan to get the balloon.
Using American Sign Language, not only is there another way to associate the word, but for kinesthetic learners, a lot of students, I've seen a lot of students suddenly understand the word in the context of that gesture, that movement. Formulate. So it's this way to this way. Okay? Do it again. Formulate. Look at the definition. To create or devise a strategy. To create or devise a strategy. On Tuesday, I had a starter where I just used the word formulate in one of the questions. We're in the middle of a RCD unit on writing argument essays. So what I wanted them to do was to choose a certain amount of vocabulary words. I called it their vocabulary challenge. How many words are you going to do for the vocabulary challenge? Which words?
Predict, evaluate, and develop.
Okay. On Friday, I always try to incorporate an activity, an engaging kind of game. Another tenet to Marzano's vocabulary philosophy is to have a game, to use the word in a fun way. But also, I think it creates a little bit more engagement. When they have fun, students tend to sometimes forget that they're learning. All right, here we go. And the word is organize.
Organize. Oh my God.